This is the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
We have a heartwarming and inspiring show for you today. I am delighted to have with me today one of the most inspirational guests ever on the show. We start with a story of a true American hero, a story of strength, survival, and spirit that is unique to our guest, actor, author, motivational speaker, and Dancing with the Stars winner, J R Martinez. This man has overcome gigantic odds again and again, always with a smile and a positive attitude. From the crucial day in Iraq when his Humvee hit a roadside bomb, through 33 surgeries to fix his scars, and ultimately to winning Dancing with the Stars, and now a father of a beautiful baby girl. J R Martinez is the definition of inspiration. He has shown us all that a human spirit is alive and well and can conquer anything. J R Martinez is an actor, author, motivational speaker, and Army veteran. His book, Full of Heart, My Story of Survival, Strength, and Spirit, debuted on New York Times bestselling list. It is my absolute honor to welcome J R Martinez to the Dr. A Show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
JR, what a life you have lived, my gosh, and you continue to live. But let's start from the very beginning. Tell me about your mother, because she really was a guiding force in your life.
You know, my mother is from Central America, El Salvador, and my mother's been through a lot in her life. And, you know, just with, you know, the way she was raised and the obstacles that she had to face as a young child, to having two kids and, you know, coming to the United States of America to pursue a little bit of that American dream, so to speak. And then at the same time, you know, she ran into a lot of obstacles when my father left. And, you know, the one thing that my mother, even though things were difficult and times were hard, she never lost hope, and she always smiled. And she found ways, and she worked, and that was something that, even though she didn't realize it, because she was essentially just doing what she had to do for me and for my sister and for, you know, my grandmother, but that left a signature on me. That pretty much, it was a staple on my life. And when I started to face adversity in my life, it just kind of allowed me to remind myself of how my mother did it, and how she always found ways to smile and just to kind of, you know, push through, and, you know, hard work, and at the end of the day, you know, you can always come out on the other side.
Well, tell me about your childhood. What was that like?
Well, my childhood was, you know, it was one of the childhoods where, you know, I kind of felt alone. I kind of felt secluded. You know, all my family still lives in El Salvador to this day. So I grew up, and it was just my mother and I. And it was difficult, you know, because, of course, I wanted to have, like the rest of my peers, cousins, uncles, aunts, grandmother around, brothers, sisters, and I had all of that, but they weren't near me. And it was something that was really difficult for me, and I moved around quite a bit, you know, and that kind of helped, helped me feel like I was not connected to a lot of my peers. And, you know, I was born in Louisiana, lived there till I was 9, and then my mom picked me up because she had a good job opportunity. And we moved to Arkansas, and I lived there till I was a junior in high school, and then we moved to Georgia. So, you know, I moved around a lot. I didn't have the family around that I would have liked to have, but at the same time, I also had the adversity where I saw my mother struggle, and I saw my mother go through. Unfortunately, she had an abusive relationship with someone she was involved in, and, you know, I witnessed all of that. And, you know, it was difficult. It's one of those childhoods that you never want any kid to be a part of and to witness and to live. However, it was something that ultimately, as I like to say, because of the choices that I made in my life, it allowed my core to be strengthened, to be prepared for the big impact that I was going to face in 2003.
Now, you in high school, you were actually quite popular, and you kept up with your looks and everything. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was big into my appearance when I was a kid. I think a lot of kids, you know, have a tendency at times to kind of go through a phase like this. And for me, it was something that I pretty much heard my whole life since I was a little boy, where I was handsome, I was cute, you know, and then, of course, as I got older, you know, the girls started to kind of take notice of that. And, you know, it was something that was important to me. It was my way of essentially blending in. It was my way of essentially being accepted outside from playing sports and my personality. But that was the thing that I constantly heard consistently, was like I was attractive physically. no one ever came up to me and said, oh, you have an amazing personality, JR. So, of course, the main thing that I banked on was the fact that I had looks, and so it was really important to me. And it was something that when I was injured and I saw my face and my body for the first time, as you can imagine, I was completely devastated. I was completely just broken down, and I felt that there was, no hope for me. I felt that there was no way that I could live in a society that in a lot of ways judges people based on their looks. And I just said that there's no way I can live in this world like this. And I felt that I would never have the opportunity to live, quote unquote, from a physical standpoint, a normal life.
But let me backtrack a little bit and get back to high school for a minute, because there's a point I want to make here. You learned an important lesson when you were in school and you refused to date a girl, and her grown-up cousins beat you up, and your mother said something that would define who you are later in life. And that was, what do you think a tiger does when he gets chased and cornered? You fight back.
Yeah. Right. And that
did that stick to you?
Yeah, and it was something that, she definitely didn't condone me as a young man to go out there and fight everybody that said something to me. It was more of like, okay, if your back is against the wall and you have nowhere else to go, I mean, sometimes you can't avoid certain situations. You have to put up, your toots, as they say, and try to win. And that was something that really did stick with me. I mean, because it was something that, okay, there was a couple of moments where in life where I felt my back was against the wall. And the only thing I could do is put up my fist and actually defend myself. And that's what I did. And it wasn't necessarily like with another kid. It was more of the different obstacles and adversity that I faced in life about putting up your fist and at the end of the day trying to win the fight.
Well, let's talk about what happened in the Army. So you decided to go into the Army when you were 19, correct?
Yes.
And then you went through training, and then you this was about a year after 9/11, or a little bit longer after that, right?
Yeah, I actually joined the Army in September of 2002, so it was a year and a day after 9/11 is when I joined, September 12, 2002. And then I went off to basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, until December of 2002. And then after that, I was assigned to my unit, which was the 101st out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I arrived there at that unit in January of 2003. And it's when I got there that the mentality, quite honestly, for me, when I tell people this all the time, when I joined the United States Army, I knew that war was a possibility. However, I never really thought that it would be my reality. And because what kids, and some adults as well, I mean, we have a tendency at times to feel like we're invisible, to feel like it won't happen to us. And you kind of get caught up in the moment. You don't think about the long-term effect of what it is of a decision that you've made, a choice that you've made. And so that's why I was kind of caught up in the aspect of like, I won't deploy. So when I got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky in January of 2003, I was having a good time. I was 19, and to me, this was like my college. I was hanging out. I mean, this was fun until one of my sergeants came up to me when they had told me to wake up that, we would be deploying sometime soon.
Now you go to Iraq, and you less than a month in there, on the morning of April 5th, you're driving your Humvee in Iraq, and right before an explosion goes off. And right before this, you were actually discussing earning a Purple Heart, you and your buddies. So tell us a little bit about what happened. What happened at that event?
Yeah, so on the 5th of April of 2003, we were escorting a convoy from the southern part of Iraq to a place called Karbala, which is just north of where we were, and which is still south of Baghdad. And, when you find yourself away from the 3 F's, family, freedom, and friends, you have a tendency at times what's going to really help you get through is humor. And you just got to be able to find ways to laugh and distract the mind from everything that you've seen, you've experienced. And one of the things that we were joking about is a Purple Heart and having a Purple Heart. And, it was more, again, just about if we had a Purple Heart, we'd come back home and how we'd go to a restaurant and the restaurant would essentially give us VIP service because we had Purple Hearts. And, and it was just, it made no sense. It was just more to fill the time and distract the mind, as I said. But, it's like I said, I've learned now, you got to be careful what you throw out into the world because you never know. I mean, you really never know. And that can be that can literally mean towards something negative, or that can literally mean like throwing it out to the world where you envision and you say to the world you want a certain goal or a dream to become a reality. And literally, after we were joking about that, within a matter of a few minutes, my front left tire of the Humvee that I was driving ran over a roadside bomb.
We'll go back to it after the break, okay? We're speaking to actor, author, motivational speaker, and hero J R Martinez. His new book, Full of Heart, is an inspirational story of survival, strength, and spirit. Stay with us for the rest of JR's story and how he overcame 33 surgeries and ended up winning Dancing with the Stars as the Dr. A Show continues.
And now, back to the Dr. A Show with your host, Dr. Will Aguila.
Welcome back to the Dr. A Show. Our guest is J R Martinez, author of Full of Heart, My Story of Survival, Strength, and Spirit. JR is an American hero whose story inspires us all. JR, on the roadside in Iraq, on your Humvee, you're driving. You guys are talking about what it would be like to have a Purple Heart. And all of a sudden, a big explosion happens on the left side, on the front tire. What happened after that? What was that like?
Well, the Humvee exploded, and what it did is from the actual explosion, everything that we had, it detonated everything else we had inside the vehicle, which caused the vehicle within a matter of seconds to be engulfed in flames. The other three soldiers were thrown out of the vehicle, all at various distances, walking away with different types of injuries. Two of them actually stayed overseas. They just had shrapnel in different parts of their body, and they was able to pull it out, and they were able to stay over. One of the guys had to come back to the States because he injured his leg. But I, on the other hand, was trapped inside the Humvee that was now engulfed in flames. So needless to say, as you can imagine, I was literally burning. And I was completely conscious the whole time I was trapped inside the truck, which was about 5 minutes. And I literally thought, we've all heard the stories of people that have gone through kind of similar experiences where they say that even though it was 2 seconds, it felt like 20 years. And that was no different in my case. 5 minutes felt like it was, 5 years. And it just felt like it was never going to end, the pain, the suffering. And I literally started to think to myself that I was going to lose my life here. My life was going to end here. I felt like there was going to be no hope. And everything that I wanted to do when I was 20, when I was 30, when I was 40, 50, 60 was never going to happen now. And it was one of those things where I tell people that not only was I burned, I sustained burns to over 34% of my body, but I also had inhalation damage. And that was the biggest thing at that moment that was threatening my life, was the fact that my lungs and my organs were damaged with all the smoke that I inhaled the time that I was trapped inside the vehicle. But I also had a lacerated liver. I had broken bones, as you can imagine. And I was in pretty bad shape, and they didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. They didn't know if I was going to be able to survive.
How long was your recovery?
I was evacuated, and I ended up in San Antonio, Texas, at a hospital called Brooke Army Medical Center, which is the burn center for the military. And I arrived at this facility 4 days after I was injured, on the 9th of April of 2003. And I literally left Brooke Army Medical Center in February of 2006. So I was there almost 3 years. And during the time that I was there, I had 32 surgeries. And then ever since then, I've had, 2 surgeries ever since I left, which now brings the total to 34. But while I was there at the medical facility, I had 32 surgeries, it was hard in itself. I mean, here I was, 19 years old, and, I turned 21, 22, 23 at the hospital, or I turned 20, 21, 22, and the rest of my peers are doing other things. Meanwhile, this is my life, and this is my recovery process. But the difficult part about it was accepting the new JR.
What was your reaction when you first looked in the mirror? Because I know you did that in the hospital bed.
No, anger, depression, regret. I hit my nurse with that question that every single one of us ask whether it's something major or something minor we experience in life, and it's the question, why? And I hit him with this question, why? Why this happened to me? Why did I look that way? And I literally turned into the victim. And I had, like I said, I had regret. I had anger towards everybody. I blamed everybody. I was the only one that was going through this. No one else could understand. No one else could relate themselves to me. I mean, that's the way I felt. And I was in this slump for a couple of weeks. And, I would barely talk to anybody. And literally what took me to snap out of it was
my mom. My mom one day she had enough. And after a couple of weeks, I think she was done with my attitude and my way of kind of looking at things and treating people. And she pretty much told me, listen, you got a lot of things to learn in life, and I think you're going to learn those things, but you got to believe, you got to stay strong, you got to have faith, and you got to try to have a good attitude, because I don't know why this happened to you. You don't know why this happened to you, but if you implement those things every single day, over time, it'll get better and you'll see the big picture. And it was something so simple. These words aren't invented by my mother. They're words that have been passed around, been in this world for years and generations and centuries. But it was just the way she said it, and it was the moment that it really hit me. And what it really came down to is it came down to me making the choice, because that's what it comes down to. My mother could have said anything she wanted to say. My doctors, my nurse, chaplains, you name it, everybody. But it comes down to me wanting to make the choice and the willingness to make that choice. And I was willing, and I wanted to. And in that moment, I made the choice that I was not going to allow this to essentially control the rest of my life. It was going to control a part of my life, but not my whole life.
You never broke down? You never contemplated suicide or have those thoughts? Or where did you draw that strength from?
I get a lot of the strength from my mother, from, just her words and, of course, her example of life. But honestly, one of the things I did a lot of, and my mother did it with me, we prayed a lot. And that was just something we just did, and we prayed. And, being Hispanic, we rely heavily on our faith. And it was something that we just relied on. And I prayed a lot, and I just, I had to go through the grieving process. I mean, I had nights where I cried and I didn't sleep the whole night, and I cried by myself in my room in San Antonio, Texas, and I just, I had nights where, I threw my fits and, I kicked as hard as I possibly could kick, and not kicking anything, just kicking in the air, and that was my moment. That was my moment of just getting it out, but I never really contemplated, I never contemplated actually taking my life. I just never did. And I don't know why that never crossed my mind. I mean, of course, I was in a hospital. I could have disconnected something. I mean, Lord knows, it probably would have, it would have been my feeding tube, and I probably would have got hungry, so I would have plugged it back in. But, I don't think even if I tried, I don't think I would have known what to do. I mean, it just never was a part of my mentality.
We often stress about insignificant things in life, but an event like the one that you had can redirect your priorities in life. What do you think that those priorities should be?
Well, I mean, priorities are different for everybody in life. I mean, it depends on individual situations. For me, what it really came down to is, of course, as a kid, I kind of focused more on being popular, having all these friends and having looks, and wanted one day to be so successful where I would have money and all these things. And, and that's great. That's an element of that. A fraction of that is great to have, but the biggest thing that I had to prioritize is that it wasn't not judging people based on just physical appearance, judging people based on who they are as individuals. I was never necessarily rude and mean to people that necessarily weren't attractive, but it was just something I still kind of had that moment where I kind of judged. And I didn't want to judge anymore, because I realized and I knew how it felt to be on this end of it. And at the same time, it just comes down to, there's more to life than just essentially trying to be so successful. It came down to me of what life was about, was trying to be successful and helping other people. And that's what essentially is catapulted me into doing what I'm doing today with my life, is the fact that I've been able, and I've had the amazing opportunity, because I've made the choice to be able to help other people. And that's what I love to do. I love to help other people.
And you're a fantastic motivational speaker. I've heard you speak, and you've touched a lot of people's lives with that. And also as an actor, you have had a lot of success as an actor, and you continue to act.
And these were things that I've never in my wildest dreams ever thought that I would be doing. I actually jokingly tell people that when they reached out to me to come do motivational speaking, I said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, why not? And I said, well, because people fall asleep on motivational speakers. I don't want people to fall asleep on me. I mean, that's what my concept of motivational speakers was about. I didn't want to do it. And literally, pretty much how it changed me, I mean, it just really gave me the opportunity to be able to speak to, whether it's 5 people or 5,000 people or 15,000 people at one time, and feel the energy and know that you, in that moment, whether it's a 30-minute speech, a 45-minute speech, or an hour speech, you are having an impact. You are affecting their lives, and that is such a powerful thing. And it, quite honestly, it almost became somewhat of an addiction for me, because it was something where I was giving so much to so many people, and it was ultimately helping me deal with, you know, my own scars, my own story, and the things that I have faced and the things that I was continuing to face on a day-to-day basis. And it's a great thing. I really enjoy doing it. I mean, it became my goal that I wanted to be a motivational speaker, and a pretty good one. And then, of course, the acting opportunity presented itself, and I never thought I was going to be an actor.
What did it feel like to win Dancing with the Stars? Everybody wants to know that.
It was a surreal feeling to be able to beat a Kardashian. I mean, that was the moment right there. It was really a shocking moment, where it was almost like an out-of-body experience. It didn't feel like it was actually me. It didn't feel like it was real. It was like, wow, I really just won in front of millions of people. Because it wasn't just I was in front of a few people. I was in front of 20 million people and people around the world. It's like, wow, this is actually pretty cool.
Well, JR, what you have accomplished, what you continue to accomplish, inspires us all. And I think you are a hero. There is no doubt. And I thank you so much for everything you've done and continue to do. I want our listeners to pick up a copy of J R Martinez's Full of Heart. You won't regret it. It is a book that will touch you to the core. And follow JR on his website, jrmartinez.com. And JR, you are going to be the Grand Marshal at the D.C. Memorial Day Parade next week, correct?
I am. I'm looking forward to that. Of course, one of the things that I love to do is try to use my platform to raise awareness about charities, but one of the things that I'm passionate about is veterans and veterans issues, and so it's a tremendous honor that I get to do that.
JR, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an honor.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.